Is there such thing as a bad win, or is a win just a win? Well, there's no better night to discuss it than after the Knicks scrape by the Brooklyn Nets 99 to 95. We're talking about it right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Alex Wolfe. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. And he is Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster, and the Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about an ugly win for the Knicks. Is there such thing as an ugly win? Is a win just a win? Will we forget about this in a week, or was this win indicative of something not so great about the Knicks on the second game of a back-to-back against a bad team? Karl-Anthony Towns, in his second game back, puts up a much more efficient outing, even if the shot isn't quite there. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about some signs of life from OG Anunoby, who had a bit of a bounce-back game finally, and Jalen Brunson being real clutch down the stretch after the Knicks only scored 3 points for the first 8 minutes of the fourth quarter. Jalen Brunson comes alive late and puts it away for the Knicks to make sure that they walk out of Brooklyn with a victory. But before that, I just want to thank you all for making Locked On Knicks a part of your day every day. Whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube, we appreciate you making us a part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit the auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And if that's not enough for you, you could check out the Locked On Knicks newsletter, because your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Knicks daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. All right, Gavin, let's get into this game. So again, final score 99 to 95. The Knicks come out over Brooklyn. It was pretty until it was ugly. I mean, I think the Knicks were playing pretty well through the first 3 quarters. And then all of a sudden, fourth quarter, just as much of a lid on the rim as I've seen for them this year, I think, which is really saying something when they've gotten absolutely demolished by a couple of really good teams, including that game against Boston to start the season in the first game. But just a really, really ugly fourth quarter where the Knicks ultimately only scored 15 points in the fourth quarter. Luckily, they held Brooklyn to 20 points, which is why they were able to pull this game out. But Gavin, not the best time down the stretch of this game, and yet the Knicks still end up with a win, albeit maybe sort of a bad win, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of, I feel like I've said this before, but it's sort of the Rorschach test of if you're a glass half full guy or a glass half empty guy as you take a sip. Really well timed. That's good coordination. And I don't know where I am on that list. I think I'm usually been glass half empty with this team, and I'm starting to think maybe I should just take this team for what it is, and that is a really good team. That's maybe not a great team, because I've just been craving a stretch of dominance, and that is my negativity. My positivity would say they're now 17-3 against teams under 500. As much as we and like me more than you have harped on the idea that this team hasn't taken care of business and has let bad teams hang around and has let bad teams upset them, like the latter part is just not reality, right? 17-3 in 20 games is obviously a great record, and you set that by the standard of Knicks teams past. You say that's incredible. Flowers to Tom Thibodeau, flowers to Jalen Brunson, flower to Karl-Anthony Towns, this entire team. And then you look at the standard that we set preseason. Well, this team is a championship contender, and they should be contending for a title in year one, and they have the talent to do it. So why should we have to wait, even if the chemistry takes some time to come around? And they're just not quite profiling like a championship team to me, in the sense that they haven't had a dominant stretch. And people are probably tired of it. I know I keep bringing up January of last year, but that was a relatively new team too, right? They traded away 2 fixtures in RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly. And they very quickly incorporated OG Anunoby and like instantaneously looked like maybe the best team in basketball, next to an all-time, like in a season where the Celtics were one of the 5 greatest teams of all time in terms of net rating. The Knicks tied them for the best net rating in any single month. And we've just seen nothing like that from this current team. Maybe we will, but right now, like it feels like everything's done in the mud. Not every night, but the vast majority of nights, things are a struggle. And I don't know if that is a chemistry issue with this team. I don't know if that's something that's going to come with time, but it does feel like they lost some of like the soul, some of the cohesion they had from last year. And that is a hard thing to replicate. I don't know if they get there. That being said, like great close by Jalen Brunson, a lot of other good stuff. We can talk about some of the errors, but those are kind of my big picture thoughts coming out of this one. Like this team is really good, not great. And maybe one game shouldn't tell me that, but that's just sort of what I'm thinking about after this game.
Yeah, I kind of fall back on what I say often, which is that any team in the NBA can beat you any given night. I mean, I think that they just kind of ran into that in this game. I don't know if the late game struggles were a product of taking their foot off the gas so much as just going cold. But either way, I mean, I'd find myself not terribly worried, at least about this singular result or
Yeah,
what it
to
means.
be clear, I'm not saying this game. It's more just a reminder that this team isn't kicking butt for sustained stretches. Is
Yeah,
what I'm getting at. Yeah.
no, I get what you're saying. I think in general, we still just kind of need to see like this statement win against a real top team. But I do think, I mean, I think it's easy to forget just today, like, oh, they had to keep this Brooklyn team at arm's length for how long, like, whatever. But like, it's a team that plays hard, like, and actually, weirdly, I mean, they kind of just got a guy in D'Angelo Russell who is more of a guy that could beat you on any given night than the guys that they sent out. Like, they sent out good role players, but they got back a guy in D'Angelo Russell who's like a consistent NBA scorer, who's had success with the Nets in the past. Like, I mean, I think that it was just one of those scenarios where the Nets were playing really hard. They started playing good defense. The Knicks turned the ball over way too much down the stretch. The Nets were getting way more of a whistle on the inside. And, I don't even necessarily think that means that the Knicks were getting, ripped off on foul calls. I think that they were just kind of not getting inside at will in this game for whatever reason. And like Claxton played pretty good defense and whatever else. But like, all in all, it doesn't make me like question much because they did just beat the Hawks yesterday and did so pretty convincingly. And like the Hawks have been actually quite a good team, especially against good teams, and really kind of vexed the Knicks in 2 games prior. So like I'm kind of looking more at that game and being like, I feel like that's more of a building block. This game just falls in the category to me of like, this is just one of the games of 82. They got caught sleeping a little bit on second game of a back-to-back, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're encouraged by the fact that Jalen Brunson was able to just turn it on right at the end of the game, make the shots they needed, put this game away. He came away with, I think it was 8 points in the final like 4 minutes or something like
Yeah.
that, to finish this game off. Like exactly what you needed out of him. Just a nice reminder of what this team does have versus what it doesn't. And what it did have for most of this game up until that 3-point, 8-minute stretch that they had at the beginning of the fourth quarter was, a team that looked like they were just going to cruise to a big win and then just kind of fell asleep for 8/48 of the game, whatever that fractions down to. But I'm not terribly worried about it. Ultimately, this one to me feels like just one of the 82 games of the season and one in which they won, and that's all that really matters. Like whether they won convincingly or not, I'm not going to be looking back on this a month from now and wondering what could have been against the Nets. Not saying that that's what you're doing either, but
Yeah.
I just think in general, I tend to see a lot of malaise from people after games like this. And my number one reaction is always just like, yeah, but they still won. That's kind of all that matters to me.
Yeah, I'm not depressed. Maybe that's something I need to talk to my therapist about. But I guess my feeling is more so like can this team just kick butt for a while? Can they take pride? Like because we've seen them do it. We saw them blow out Minnesota. We saw them blow out Denver. Teams that are much better than the Brooklyn Nets. And yes, of course, you're not going to shoot like that every night. And tonight they had a particularly bad shooting effort, but a Nets team with no Cam Thomas. I think I disagree. And not that this is exactly what you're saying, but that there's a huge difference between Dennis Schroeder and D'Lo. Like to me, D'Lo's a better maybe a slightly better passer, but they're pretty similar. Like I just think you should kick this team's butt. And there are just too many little effort things. Like the Knicks gave up 10 offensive rebounds in the second half. And some of that is Nick Claxton is a good offensive rebound, and Cat is clearly not 100%. Some of that is like there are plays where Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby are just watching the ball go off the rim and he's crashing in to get a board. And it just feels like they're in these situations. They can lose these games. But to your point, on the positive, shout out to Jalen Brunson in a game where he was not having a particularly good night. He's still able to come out and close this thing out. We're going to tell you exactly how he did it next on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we're going to let you know about our friends over at Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement were unforgettable. Ironically, in the same building where the Knicks just got a narrow win today, seeing Childish Gambino in Barclays Center. And now Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets to an upcoming game. I'm trying to go to a Knicks game sometime soon, and I was using the Gametime app. And with Gametime Picks, I found some amazing deals. I could even see the view from seats before buying. If you want, check out the Chase Bridge. I think the sleeper, one of the best seats in the building. That's where I always look to get. And the super deal is particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, and we're back in to keep talking through this 99-95 ugly little Knicks win over the Brooklyn Nets. And Gavin, I'll throw it to you to talk through the Jalen Brunson experience in this game. I thought that he was a little cold for most of the game. Just couldn't quite seem to get it going. Maybe a little bothered by like the Nick Claxtons of the world on the inside, which, I thought Claxton had a pretty damn good game. So I'll give him props where it's due. Through the first couple quarters, I was kind of like, eh. And then he really turned it on late and was a big part of that big run late in the game. But then Jalen Brunson, fourth quarter, 8 points, 3 of 6 shooting, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. All those points came right down the stretch, like right in the last 4 minutes, because again, the Knicks only scored 3 points for the first 8 minutes of the fourth quarter. So pretty much all their scoring happened in the final 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, which if you're doing math at home, that means they scored all of 12 points in the final 4 minutes, because they only scored 3 for the first 8. Just really ugly up until that point, but ultimately he got it done when the team needed him. Just standard Jalen Brunson fare, a little runner, like a nice little floater at one point, managed to draw contact, get to the free throw line when they needed it. I thought he just kind of went into the bag of tricks, and other than 3-pointers, which he kind of had an issue with the whole night and luckily didn't go to down the stretch, otherwise just kind of went into his bag of tricks and pulled a rabbit out of a hat, wherein the rabbit is a win for the Knicks in a game that they probably could have lost.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I do think sometimes when they don't come out and just wreck teams like the Nets, I maybe unfairly put it on Jalen because he is so incredibly consistent. And I compare him to, Shea doesn't really have off nights. Nikola Jokic doesn't really have off nights. And that might be an unfair standard because those are two guys who are just on a different level than everyone else. Maybe include Giannis in there right now. But I mean, the way he finished this game was just great. It started actually with an assist where they ran a pick and roll with Cat. And I weirdly, Alex, let me know if you do. I don't remember this happening a lot this year. The Nets switch it, right? Because Nick Claxton, to your point, one of the best switch bigs in the NBA. But the flip side of that is Keon Johnson has to switch onto Cat, and Cat, again, because that thumb is like he was wincing in a whole lot of pain for the second straight night a couple of times during this game. Because of that, he cannot shoot the basketball right now. He was 0 for 3 from 3, but he absolutely dominated the Nets on the inside. And Jalen, recognizing that, just flipped him the ball. Cat turns, easy little jump hook over Keon Johnson. And I thought that was great recognition from Jalen. And two, when they get switches, instead of Jalen attacking a big, as good as Jalen is at doing that, go to Cat in the post, because that just, I don't have the number in front of me, but Cat on a smaller guy, I would guess he's shooting something like 90%. And out of those 10% that he misses, he rebounds half of them and puts it back in, because that's what Cat was doing all night. But then after that, they did a little pivot off of that where they ran the pick and roll. Cat posted again, and this time Jalen sprinted to him, got the basketball back, and immediately hits a nice little baseline fadeaway. That was beautiful. He had that layup where he was running in transition. I think it was OG to Hart to Brunson. It was Cat to Hart to Brunson. That was really nice. And then an elbow step back jumper on Keon Johnson before hitting those late 2 free throws. So just a perfect ending. I thought the quiet start, some of it was the Nets were doubling him, and the Knicks got a lot of like buckets that you'd call hockey assists for Jalen off of him being double teamed. Some of it was just, I think, a lack of aggression. But Alex, I think we should pivot to Cat next, because he was exceptional, given that he was clearly in some pain. And I think he carried this team with his offensive rebounding and just being automatic around the rim.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive rebounding, the just going inside and managing to, in a game, again, you pointed it out already, didn't make a three, 0 for 3. If your team, Cat needs to take more threes, I don't think you would be banging the drum that he needed to take more in this one, because obviously the thumb is just, if there was any shot that hurt thumb was going to hurt, it would be the longest one, right? Because you need to get the most of your hand on the ball to propel it from the 3-point line and do so accurately. My theory is the Cat is trying to just use his 4 fingers rather than his thumb to push his 3-point shots. And obviously, if you're making that big of a change when you're an elite shooter, it's gonna make your shot look pretty ugly. And they have been, like, they've been either coming up short or like hitting way off back rim. I feel like he's either overdoing it or underdoing it on every time he tries to like shoot a jump shot right now. But that said, still managed to be super efficient otherwise, like 11 of 18 shooting, 0 of 3 from 3. That means he was 11 of 15 on all 2-point attempts, which is just crazy good efficiency. Most of it was just crashing into the hoop and, just basically seeking contact and getting right in there, finishing over guys. Little hooks were extremely effective for him in this game. I thought he just went into his bag of tricks and did everything that he needed to do, much like Jalen Brunson did. I'm very magician themed in this episode. I don't know what's going on here. But also on top of that, another pretty high impact defensive game, like a positively OG Anunoby-esque stock line for him. 3 steals, 2 blocks, like was altering shots on the inside, getting his hands on the ball as passes were coming across the lane and everything. Like I thought he was very effective on that end as well. And just in general, a really, really well-rounded effort for him. Like I really, other than the 3-point shot, would not know that he was playing hurt. Because I don't know, rebounding is not exactly easy on your thumbs either. So I guess, he's managing to just kind of work through the pain with that. But it's, I'm seeing less of him wincing. There was once or twice where he kind of tugged at it like you would like a jammed finger, or something like that, and seemed to fiddle with it a little bit. But hopefully this long layoff of 3 days between games, because they don't play again until Saturday, works out well for him, and he gets to get, actually, I guess it's really more like almost 4 days, because I think they play a nighttime game on Saturday. So it's like the better part of 4 days he gets here. Hopefully that pays off for him and he's able to kind of rehab that, get some heat on it or whatever, like whatever you got to do to restore mobility to that thumb and get the shooting back, because otherwise, I mean, he's executing every other aspect of the game at a super high level right now. And kind of all that's missing to put him back in that like MVP caliber conversation is just that 3-point shooting coming back.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if this is something that lingers, because I don't think we talked about it on here, but I know there was that report that he had a bone fragment in his thumb, which I could maybe do some Googling of, and we could play fake doctor on here. But I'm fascinated.
If I may, we sort of already saw that play out, right? That was kind of what was going on with OG last year, granted a different appendage, but
yeah,
I think basically what they say about bone fragments is you can play through it for the whole season as long as you can pain manage. And then at the end of the year, they'll probably just go in, briefly open them up, pull the fragment out, and then sew them back up. But like even doing that minor of a surgery because of how the stitches and the fact that like you can't really get away with anything more than like a normal incision to take a piece of bone out, it would probably cost him 4 weeks or something before he'd be able to get back. And I think that's probably why he's going to try to pain manage it.
Yeah, and that's if that is the timeline, and we don't know if it's exactly that it's interesting risk benefit analysis if this continues to affect his shot the rest of the way. But I don't know, something I'm watching for, because despite the fact that he was, there's to your point, a pretty good case to be made that he was the Knicks' best player tonight. Like, part of the reason they don't blow out the Nets is because he goes 0 for 3 from 3 instead of going 3 for 7 from 3. Like that's significant in a game where no one's shooting well, and your best 3-point shooter all of a sudden cannot shoot. So that is 100% something I'm going to watch going forward. But I wanted to note, the thing I'm watching right now with Cat, which I'm really enjoying, is his ability to pass on drives, which I noted yesterday, and I've noted a couple of times, is not something we've seen from him very much this season. He had one the other night against the Hawks. He had two in this game, which was really exciting. I'm trying to find where he did have another pick and roll with OG where he was the roller, and he ran in for a lay. But the one I was thinking of, he had a short roll where he hit Precious cutting for a dunk, and I'm trying to find the other one in my notes. I don't know why I can't find it, but it was like a hook pass into a layup that was like off of a live dribble drive, and that's just not something we've seen from Cat. And I think if he can start, like, the next step off this is him spraying out to shooters, and that would be a game changer if he could do that, because we've said against the best defenses in the league, the single biggest issue the Knicks have right now is shot creation, and that it's basically just Jalen Brunson in the half court and Josh Hart in transition. If you could add Cat to that equation, I think much more so in the postseason than in the regular season, it'll make the difference for the Knicks down the stretch of games. The only other thing I wanted to note was that the Knicks continue to mix it up with him in pick and roll coverage and use him at the level a little bit more. There was one play where D'Lo got right by him, and like Cat at the level is great, and I think we're all in favor of seeing some of it, but that means he consistently has to be engaged, consistently has to be in a stance, because if not, Tibbs kind of like wimps out of it, and you get plays like Cam Johnson coming off the screen and Cat inexplicably in a drop against a guy who's been a top 5 shooter in the NBA this year. And I don't care if that's the scheme, like, he just has to be up at the level there. And that is something that I don't know if that's on Tibbs or if that's Cat's decision in the moment, but scheme versatility is great. With both options, you have to execute. So it's a little on Tibbs, a little on Cat, but just something I'm watching going forward, Alex.
Yeah, certainly something worth keeping an eye on. And also worth keeping an eye on was OG Anunoby sort of having a little bit of a revival in this game. So we're going to talk about what inspired him to do better in this one. Whether it was someone pretty at courtside, I don't know. I guess we'll theorize. But we'll also talk about the bench having another good day. So that's all coming up next on Locked On Knicks. All right, Gavin, we're back in, continuing talking through this narrow victory for the Knicks. And let's talk OG Anunoby a bit here. So 20 points for OG in this one, 8 of 18 from the field, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 1 block, back to his crazy ways on defense. Sidney Sweeney was front row at the game, much like he had a really good game in front of Anne Hathaway. Now has a really good game in front of Sidney Sweeney. Coincidence? I think not. OG Anunoby likes to impress pretty famous actresses, is what I'm getting out of all this. But really, though, I thought that this was just a nice resurgent game for him. The 3-point shot still not maybe quite where you would want it to be. 2 of 6, only 33% there. But all in all, like, a decent enough shooting game, and really just the defensive tenacity I thought was cranked up to the level that we would expect in this game. Mikal Bridges, like, sort of had an off game. I don't know. I can't imagine that he was nervous going to Brooklyn when he was basically just playing another Knicks home game, and he was used to those being basically away games when the Knicks would visit last year. So I don't know if anything played into that, but he had a little bit of an off night. 3 of 13, 2 of 6 from 3, 2 steals, 2 assists. Played some pretty decent defense individually on D'Angelo Russell at times, so that was good. But all in all, I think the Knicks really needed what they got out of OG in this one, because it seems like for the most part to get a win lately, they need at least one of those two to show out. And so on this night, it was OG. Maybe the next game it'll be Mikal. Hopefully soon it'll be both of them all the time again, like it was early in the season when the Knicks got to really cruise. But for today, at least, this was I thought a pretty solid outing for OG again.
Yeah, 45 games into the season. You just got me like, how many times would you guess if we were doing Benji Ritholtz's player grades, how many nights this season would we have given both OG and Mikal a B+ or higher? I would guess it's maybe 6 out of 45 or something. Like it
Yeah, I
feels
was
like
gonna say, like,
it's
maybe
almost never
10.
happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like 10 maybe. Like, early in the season, they were both clicking
But
really
Mikal
well,
was
like
sucking earlier in the season. Like I feel
yeah.
like we were never high on Mikal early in the year. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's true, like, the shooting percentages were bad most of the time, but he did have a number of games where I was just like, the process was really good. Like, he and OG had it's weird because he and OG had way better chemistry early in the season. Like, it seemed like they were really feeding off of each other in the corners, like, like, they would just kind of each take their one corner, the other one would, cut towards the hoop or whatever, and get the ball, and then, like, either go up for a layup with, the threat of kicking it out to the other guy, or would end up kicking it out to the other guy, and then you get a nice open three, like, that was when I thought they were both at their best, regardless of how they shot. I do feel like we've kind of lost that a little bit, and I don't know why.
Yeah, it reminds me of, how it was like a common conceit on children's shows that the kids would get some kind of magical item and then couldn't figure out how to share it. It feels like there's like a magic band and only one of them gets to wear it each night and gets the powers of being the ultimate wing. Or maybe one gets an offensive one gets a defensive one. I don't know. It's probably not the case, but something Knicks reporters who are lucky enough to be credentialed should certainly pursue. But I'm with you. I thought it was at times a little bit of a frustrating game for OG here. I'm going glass half empty again. Sue me. Like just because on that late corner three he had when the Knicks were trailing 87-88, the Knicks ran this perfect transition possession, got him a wide open corner three. And I just had no faith it was going in. And that's kind of where I'm at with OG right now, where if it's a big three, honestly, same with Mikal for the most part. I just do not buy that it's going in. If anyone's shooting it other than Brunson or Cat or Josh Hart attacking the basket, I don't think it's going in. And that's a problem because they're going to have to make those shots for the Knicks to win as much as they want to. That being said, I'm with you. I thought it was a return to glory for him defensively, more so in the second half than the first half, where in the first half I thought it was solid. Second half, there were just a bunch of great plays. My two favorite maybe of the entire game was when he was sliding with Cam Johnson and then just had maybe the most dismissive block he had all year. Like he basically did everything short of the Allen Iverson walk over Ty Lue on him. Like he just kind of walked away, stared at the crowd, didn't even fall down or anything. Like it was just the easiest block in the world. And then late they switched him onto D'Lo with like 1:10 left, and he just totally shut him down. That was the play where Josh Hart ultimately forced a shot clock violation. That was really good. And then one play after that, amazing defense, chasing Cam Johnson around the screen and literally beating Cam Johnson, the offensive player, to his spot to poke the ball away. When Cam Johnson knew where he was going, and OG, theoretically at least, didn't know exactly where he was going and had to get through a screen. That was incredible. The offense late wasn't really good. Missed that corner three. Missed a pretty open lefty layup off a rebound. Did have one drive I really loved where he attacked. I have no idea. I just don't know most of the guys in the nets. I'm sorry if that makes me a bad podcaster, but went right at it. Was a Martin or a Johnson or someone with a between the legs burst layup. And it's just been a long time, Alex, since he's attacked someone one-on-one off the dribble, got to the rim and finished. So overall, I'm going to grade this as a really positive OG game with those few caveats sprinkled in.
Yeah, he was actually going at Martin Johnson there. Fun fact.
Martin Johnson.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
You could tell me that guy's on the Nets, and I'd be like, "Yep, Martin Johnson, love him, favorite player growing up. He was great at Duke."
Martin Johnson Wilson. That was the story.
Buy the jersey. That'll be my first Nets jersey, and then people can accuse me of being an Nets fan.
Martin Johnson Wilson. Yeah, that's the
sure. Yeah,
that would be pretty funny.
Yeah, that guy's gonna hit a game winner in the Knicks in 3 weeks, but
yeah, probably at some point. But yeah, I think I was probably a little more positive on OG's game. I think that he just kind of fell. I mean, I will say he was the one guy that I was the most frustrated with during the cold stretch where they only scored 3 points to begin the fourth quarter, because I do feel like he ended up with the cleanest looks of anyone during that time. I mean, he just blew like a pretty easy bunny of like a two-handed layup at one point too. Like I think it was a putback, but like I think it was Brunson went in and had to take a really hard take, and then that set OG up for a fairly easy offensive rebound. Then he went up for like absolute bunny and just like front rimmed it, like hit it too hard off the backboard, and then it just bounced off the front rim. And I think it created a transition opportunity too, which was even worse. But luckily, like the Knicks defense was solid in the fourth quarter. Like I said, they're able to withstand only scoring in the teens because they held the Nets to just slightly higher in the teens for that whole quarter. So it's tough to hate too much because some of those highlight defensive plays happened during that stretch as well. So he was at least making up for it on the other end, even if he wasn't making shots on the offensive end. I want to shout out the bench again. I do feel like this was another positive outing for them. I think Precious Achiuwa, this was maybe my favorite game yet of the season for him. I just thought he looked way more fluid in this game. Maybe the passing was not quite at the same level as it has been in some of the most recent games, but the scoring certainly looked as good as it's looked for him. I think his touch is finally back, which is really important. Like he went 5 of 7 overall, 1 of 2 from 3, which you'll take that anytime you can get it from Precious. But 11 points, 4 boards, 1 assist, 1 steal for him. I think largely, Gavin, the thing is the finishing has gotten better, like closer to the rim. Like it seemed like for the first, I don't know, has he been back 25 games yet? Like for the first like 20 or so games, it felt
He's
like
been back. I just want to tell you, he's been back 24 games. So that was really
oh,
good.
wow, oh, what a good guess. Well, it felt like for about the first 20 that he just really could not get the ball in the hoop. Like it just seemed like up close, which was his forte last year, just was really evading him. Like he just had stone hands and just seemed like he couldn't get that right amount of touch on the ball. And he was like really good last year too at doing those kind of like just throw it straight up in the air and it falls through the hoop kind of makes, off of an offensive rebound where he was kind of getting hacked or whatever. And like just it didn't really have that. And that's kind of coming back to him, which I love to see. And then Deuce McBride also had a fairly good game, 7 points for him, 3 of 6 shooting in just under 19 minutes. I just thought it was another solid outing for him. And then Campaign didn't really have the best game ever, but I mean, the team was a positive with him and with Lander Shamet out there, though. So even though neither of them or Campaign scored 2 points on a couple free throws, but neither of them made a huge impact offensively. But the bench, that like even if they're only getting to kind of play together at the end of the first, beginning of the second quarter, they're at least bringing really good energy during that time now. And I wish they would get afforded that same opportunity in the second half, to be completely honest, because it would probably make in a game like this one, it probably would have made the starters a lot more fresh down the stretch. But that's neither here nor there. Ultimately, they won the game, I guess. But I have been pretty impressed with what they're coming up with, and it does make me really excited for a world where Mitchell Robinson could potentially get back in the next few weeks, because if that happens and they then have a 5-man bench unit that they can call on in different combinations, depending on what the matchup calls for, I think that's going to be really beneficial. And I could see Mitch getting a decent chunk of minutes, and I maybe not even having it fully eat into Precious's chunks of minutes, because Precious, I think, has shown now that he could play pretty comfortably with Cat and give Josh Hart a little bit of rest. So lots of exciting stuff going on. I'm glad the bench is finally kind of finding their way here.
Yeah, totally with you. I wish they'd played more, but Precious, there was one nice pass again, 4-on-3. I don't know what's gotten into him. Like he, for a year and a half on the Knicks, he was not making these passes. Now these last 3 games, he's suddenly making these passes. Like I don't know if they hired a big man passing coach between him and Cat, but it's kind of crazy, and it's really fun for me. He had a beautiful bounce pass to OG Anunoby cutting, where it almost looked like, remember there was that movie trailer back in the day where they kept talking about bending the bullet. Like he bent the pass around the defender. I don't know how, but he got some backspin on it, and it just like whipped around, hit OG for a layup. That was sick. I do think Precious was a little like the only reason I'm not quite as high on his game is because he was guilty for a lot of those Claxton offensive rebounds, at least as far as I was watching, where Claxton had 5 in 2 minutes. So it was a little bit on Cat, it was a little on the wings, a little on Precious, but the Nets had 10 total in the second half. So something he'd get better at. I don't think the rim protection is great with him. Offensively, I think he's playing the best he's played in a long time. Deuce and Payne together is just such a fun combo. That's something that I look at and like have nostalgia for the first 20 games or so. And I hope they keep getting to play together. Like tonight, they had that connection where Payne hit him right in stride for a transition 3. Deuce had another awesome 3 where Cat was bringing it up, and then they did a little dribble handoff, and Deuce just sprinted to the 3-point line, put the brakes on. The Nets guy just kind of slid right past him and just banged it off the dribble 3. That was great. He's not shooting as well at the rim as he was last year. Missed a dunk tonight. That's something to keep watching. And Payne had just one of the prettier assists I think anyone in the Knicks has had all year, where he was coming off a screen. He had a step, hesitation dribble to freeze his guy, burst to the rim, big steps up. I think it was Claxton, and he just hits him with like going up with the right hand as if he was going to shoot, switch to the left-handed midair, wrap around pass to Precious for a dunk. And it's just point guarding 101. It's a pass that I don't see Jalen make very often. And shout out Campaign. I never thought I'd be the guy asking for more campaign minutes. I've been super inconsistent on him, and maybe it's because he's been super inconsistent, Alex, but I thought he was great. Play campaign in the second half, and I'm sure we're on the same page. Shout out Josh Hart. That the rebound of the Cam Johnson miss that would have tied the game at 95, or actually no, would have given them a 98-97 lead, if I'm remembering correctly. The rebound, toe tap on the baseline, and the timeout all in one motion. That was a game-winning type of play. Elite role player doing elite role player things, and I'm done. That's my thoughts on this game.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if we want to shout out Josh Hart, not the first time that he's made a play like that this year either.
Mhm.
I mean, he's kind of made that his new like staple play, his new like pet play is the high jump for the rebound, somehow landing his feet perfectly in bounds like a football wide receiver, like trying to get both feet down and then bouncing his way to either pass it to someone, or in that one, I mean, the really impressive part was that he took enough time too, as he was kind of like leaning Tower of Pisaing his way out of frame on the sideline there, to take an assessment and be like, can I pass it? Is he open? Is he open? Had like 3 reads and then was like, okay, never mind. Timeout. I'm losing my bounce. Like, and managed to call it before he fell over out of bounds. Really, really good stuff from him. Really good wherewithal, really good court awareness, really good situational awareness in the game. Just a quintessential Josh Hart play. But yeah, I think that's it for me too. I think we can end this one. We'll have some more content for you guys before the weekend. And then, of course, no game until Saturday. So we're going to have to come up with some stuff. We'll find some things to talk about and keep you guys entertained until the Knicks next play basketball, an eon from now, a whole 3.5, 4 days. But until then, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.